Hello, everyone, and good morning. Welcome to the show. John Henry Soto here with you as always. It is 7 a.m. here in Nashville, Tennessee. It is June 26, 2026, and we are getting ready to have a conversation about the business side of creativity. I hope you're all doing well out there. It is Friday, so let us get the show on the road. Hope you're all getting ready for a beautiful, exciting, and entertaining weekend. It's going to be a lot of fun for me. I got a lot of stuff happening this weekend, and I hope you are as well. All right, well, let's get started here. One of the things about business is that when you're in show business, people always forget the business side because the show is really the fun part, right? The business side is sort of like, I don't really care, but we have to actually pay attention to it. And those that actually do and really invest in the education of the business side, they're the ones that are going to have the long-term careers and long-term effect on the industry, right? Many artists focus heavily on developing their craft, but far few spend time learning the business side of their creative career. While talent is important, talent alone rarely creates long-term success. Long-term success. Whether you're a musician, filmmaker, writer, podcast, or entrepreneur, understanding business fundamentals can make the difference between a hobby and a sustainable career. Creativity may open the door, but business knowledge often determines how far you can go once that door opens. So that is very, very important. I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with people who've signed agreements, or I'm going to talk about that in a second now, um, or got themselves into a situation where they didn't realize what their responsibility was. They didn't realize the terms of their agreement. And it really, they're still paying. Some of them are still paying for it today. I'll tell a story at the end of this one section here. So, one of the most overlooked areas is understanding contracts and agreements. Too many talented artists sign documents without fully understanding their rights, responsibilities, or long term implications. While every situation is different, learning the basics of contracts, intellectual property, licensing, and ownership eliminate risk. But it also helps creators make informed decisions. Um, oh, wait, that's not what I was going to. Okay, sorry, I skipped a section there. So, um, while every situation is different, learning the basics of contracts, intellectual property, licensing, and ownership can help protect your work and prevent costly mistakes. Knowledge doesn't eliminate risk, but it helps creators make informed decisions and ask better questions before entering into any agreement. So, I have a story that I'll tell very quickly. So, a friend of mine who's an attorney was telling me that she was working for someone with an artist who signed an agreement, and the agreement was really bad for the poor guy, and he was trying to get out of it. So he went to her, to this attorney, an entertainment attorney here in Nashville, to see if he can what he can do to kind of get out of it. And unfortunately, she was looking at this solid contract and said, well, if they don't want to let you out of it, they don't really have to. And they're not letting him out of it. As of the last I've heard, I don't know. I won't say anybody's name in this, but obviously, he's now having to tour for almost barely nothing, just making just enough to just get by, to pay off this thing that is probably going to take him about 10 years at the rate he's going to pay off what he owes this label. And he can't get out of it. If he would have just gone to an attorney and paid, I don't know what an attorney charges, but even if they paid $1,000 to sit down and go over the contract and whatever, or whatever it would have been, you scrape that money aside, you scrape it, put it together, and you should always have a fund put aside. If you make $10, take $2 and put it in an account for those kinds of things, right? If you make $100, take $10 and put it aside. I mean, really, this is like that important to do it. Just start doing that now, because when you need that money for like an attorney, $500, $1,000, you need just 1 hour of somebody looking at a contract and saying how what this looks like to you. It's super important to have that. So now, unfortunately, that poor young man, who's not as young anymore as he was when he signed it, is going to be spending the next 10 years just to pay off this thing. If he doesn't really get, and if something doesn't pop, if he gets a hit record, then obviously he'll pay that off, and then the rest, and then he has more negotiating power, right? When you're doing more, you can leverage what you're doing, and you can say, I want a new contract, and even if they, I mean, that's what Prince did, right? Prince didn't have a really good contract, but um he just decided he's not going to give them any more music. He's going to become that symbol. And then he became the artist known as, right? Formerly known as Prince, and then he became the artist, and he just started putting out records that way. And then the record label was like, he's like, well, he's not Prince anymore. We can't sue. We only could sue Prince. Only Prince was on that paperwork, and it kind of he really figured out a loophole. And then they let him out of the contract, and then he had to deliver one album, which he did. He said he put together stuff. It wasn't his best work, but it turned out to be a great album anyway, because I don't think he knows how to do I don't think he would ever be able to make a bad album. Rest in peace, Prince. So that's something that you really need to educate yourself on. Really getting the legal stuff under your belt. If either you have an attorney that you can go to already, or you study things yourself that you can somewhat make an educated decision. At the end of the day, it's going to be your decision anyway, but having experts around you are going to make things so much easier and can really help you with so much pain in the future. So let's jump into branding and promotion here, right? So branding and promotion are equally important. In today's competitive environment, people need to understand who you are, what you stand for, and what makes you different. Your brand is more than a logo or social media profile. It's the experience people have when they interact with your work. Consistent messaging, quality content, professional communication, and a clear vision help build trust with audiences, industry professionals, and potential collaborators. Great work deserves to be seen, and effective promotion helps make that happen. So, building a brand can take a little bit of time, because sometimes we're so artists, we're very emotional, as some of you may be more than others, right? But we're very, I call it passion. Some people call it insanity. Some people call it a very, very, irrational sometimes, to a point, you can say. But there's a lot of passion in what we're doing, right? And because of that, we're not focused so much on what brand we're putting out. We're only focused on what we're currently doing. But we have to really focus on that, because that's what people are going to interact with. If you want people to interact consistently with your work, and you want to build real true fans, well, then your messaging has to be consistent. You have to have quality content, and you have to provide professional communication, right? And you have to have also a clear vision of what this content is about, right? Like when I go on here, I know this is about filmmaking and music, right? I talk a little bit about wellness, because we do a wellness show on Sunday nights, but I have a wellness coach who's a professional who knows about these things a lot better than I do, right? We're not doctors, but we have some really good information, and we have some leverage in the fact that we've interviewed like hundreds of people in these spaces, right? And when you're coming from a position of trying to brand, you have to stay clear on what the vision is, but you also have to keep the work going, because building a brand is not just the work, right? It's an overall encompassing packaging thing that you have to kind of come up with. Branding for me, this jacket, this shirt, this hat, It's a sort of a little bit of a look brand. I kind of dress like this on my normal life. So it's not so much of a brand for just out there, but somebody said, the way you dress, you should keep dressing like that, but on camera, not just when you go out. So I was like, oh, okay. So I started doing that. And this has become sort of a very comfortable thing for me. Sometimes I wear a shirt, a tie. Sometimes I wear, but I always have a hat on. I always wear, I always have some kind of a beard thing going on. I had this long thing once, and it's always just keeps things a little bit, but there's always a uniform sort of thing to my look, to my madness, right? But very important to actually work on it because, if you want to be seen and you want to be remembered, then the brand alone sometimes can be enough. People could say, oh, yeah, I remember that little dude with the glasses and the hat. I don't know what he was talking about, but I just remember what he looked like. So I do get a lot of that, and I don't know if it's because of the content, but I meet people all the time. Oh, I mean, I can't even count how many times it's happened to me. But when I meet them, they say, "I've seen you somewhere," and I always think to myself, I was like, "Oh, really?" I was like, "Well, maybe online somewhere." And they're like, "Yeah, where are you from? Are you from?" And they'll give me some place. Are you from Canada? And I'm like, "No, I'm not at all. No, never been to Canada." But there's this thing that kind of like triggers their mind into knowing, seeing me somewhere, and maybe they did. That'd be a good thing if they saw me and they remembered this mug. I mean, Jesus, Lord help them. But it helps to have a vision of what you want to present to the world. And the branding is not only your look, right? But it's also the content you're putting out. It's also the words you're saying. It's also the narrative. My narrative has been the same for the 8 years that I've been doing this show. And even before that, it was basically the same narrative. I've gotten better at communicating. I've gotten better at delivering it. I have more experience because I've interviewed hundreds of people now, and I have more experience that I've learned from them. But overall, that's the branding messaging that I give out, including the look, including the lighting, all the other things that I put together. If you look through my content, you see, oh yeah, that's kind of who this guy is. I'll talk about my family. I'll talk about my, raising kids. I'll talk about, playing music, my guitar that's right here. I'll always talk about, I'll always play music. So you'll see a lot of things, with my films, music. It's basically the artistic things, right? That's kind of what I do. My wife is a painter. This is her paintings back here. She's got some beautiful paintings all around our house here. And so there's a lot of creativity here, a lot of art, branding. And then, but you never really know right off the bat, this is my brand and this is how I'm going to brand it. Sometimes it takes a little while. What you should do is just create content, feel it out, look at it, see what you look like, see like, okay, this is sort of, I can see this, and start working with it. And if you work with a professional that can help you, you should start doing this kind of stuff. Then, a branding professional can be a lifesaver really, and save a lot of time too. Time saver, lifesaver. Perhaps the most important aspect of the business side of creativity is long-term planning. Long-term planning is very, very important. I think we forget that, we look at the future, we want to be successful in the future. But let's say we get, success, right? And you find something right now and you're like, boom, I got it. Well, you want to keep it, right? And branding, knowing the business side of this will keep that brand going for a long, long time once you understand those elements of it. Successful creators don't just think about their next song, film, event, or project. They think about where they want to be in 5 or 10 years. They build relationships, develop multiple income streams, invest in their skills, and make decisions that support long term growth. Creativity and business are not opposing forces, they work together. Artists put themselves in a position to create meaningful work while building careers that can stand the test of time. So important to realize that there is two sides. It is show business. Show business is very intentional. They gave it that title for a reason. Somebody did. I don't know who did. But when you're doing a show, there's behind the scenes, there's got to be a business. You got to sell tickets. You gotta market. You gotta promote. You gotta do all these things. That's the business side of it. Some people are just naturally good business people and good artists. It just happens. And you see them out there on YouTube. They got millions and millions of followers, and they're doing their thing. They have a brand. Now they have a team, but they started out pretty much the same thing, and it just kind of worked. Maybe that can be you, but you'll never know if you don't try. So get out there and give it a shot, right? Why not? All right, here are 10 things um, that you can do to strengthen the business side of your creative journey, right? Your creative career. Number one is learn the basics of contracts. It is boring. I mean, it is. I'm not gonna pretend that it's a fun thing to do. My mouth is so dry this morning. Um, but it's not. I'm not gonna pretend like it's an exciting thing to do. But learning the business side of contracts is very, very important. Understand the key terms, the rights, obligations, ownership, and compensation before signing anything. If you can, ideally, you want to go to an attorney, an entertainment attorney, and have them look over the contract. That is your best bet. If you're not going to do that, or if you can't afford that, or if you don't want to spend the money on that, you better get the basics. You better get some books. You better take a course. You better start studying some of the basics of contracts. So when you read them, you know what they're saying because they use lingo that's double talk. And sometimes they do that on purpose to confuse the writer, which is kind of really mean, right? And artists, they're so vulnerable because their art is being looked at and being judged constantly, right? We're in the business of judgment. It's all we do all day is we just go out here and get judged. Right now, I'm being judged. You're judging my beard, my hat, the artwork. You're judging everything, right? Not in a bad way. Some of you maybe are, and I'm doing it in a bad way, but it doesn't really matter, right? It's still we're in the business of judgment. And so there's a lot of sensitivity coming, and we're very vulnerable. So somebody says, "Here, we're going to give you $50,000. You sign here," and you're thinking, $50,000. That's a lot of money. I've never seen that much money in one lump sum being given to me for my art. Where do I sign? Right? You sign off, and you don't realize that's a loan. You got to pay that back. And if your movie doesn't do well, or if you don't um, sell a lot of records, you're going to be paying that back for quite some time. I mean, think about it. And if you're getting back only a penny per unit, how many units do you have to sell before you pay them back their 50,000? And there's more added on to that as well. So it's very important to do that. Number two, build a strong personal brand. Create a clear message about who you are and what makes your work unique. So I've always said, I grew up in the South Bronx. I grew up in the South Bronx. Grew up very poor, not very, very well. I grew up very poor. Yes, I mean, it was welfare, and my grandparents kind of took care of me early on in my life. I went out on my own afterwards with my family, my mom and my children, and her children. I mean, I don't like to call them step because we came out of the same mom, but we have different fathers, right? So they're really my brother and my sister because we were all cooked in the same oven, right? And then we went through some homelessness. I went back to my grandma, and I had to work my way out of that. And finally I found music at an early age, and I started playing around 15, 16 years old, 17 years old, and just never stopped playing. And that really saved my life. So that's part of my message, right? That's part of my narrative. That's on my bio. You can read all about that. It's on a little book that I wrote also that has some of that at the beginning of the book. And all these things have my story, right? Number three, develop a marketing strategy. Okay, so don't rely solely on social media. Use email, networking, events, partnerships, and content creation. I've been using newsletters on LinkedIn. If you have not tried LinkedIn yet, you should. I'm a talent agent, so so there's a lot of business people there, but also as a filmmaker, I've met a lot of filmmakers, a lot of writers, a lot of actors, musicians. I've met them all there. really, really impressed at how many artists I've actually met there who've taken this professional viewpoint, because LinkedIn is known for more for professionalism, right? But you can do a newsletter on LinkedIn for free. You can actually write a newsletter. You can put it out. You can schedule it. I have a newsletter that comes out every single Friday. It comes out today at 8 o'clock. So it's 7:20 here in Nashville. 8 a.m. this morning, my newsletter will be launched out. It goes out to about 1,500 members, and it gets and the open rate. It gets into the email also. Their open rate is like 30%, which is unheard of, which is really great. So I'm getting a lot of information, a lot of feedback from that, and a lot of energy. So that's one of the strategies that I just found. I would have never thought about that. So you have to find them. You have to go look around for what is a good social. Don't just use one thing. Research a lot of different marketing ways and put it into your strategy. Number four, track your finances. Know your income, expenses, budgets, and financial goals. Know what you need. Write it down. No, okay, I need to make this, or this project is making me this one is making me that. So it's more or less what your finances are. Number five, create a long-term plan. Set goals for 1 year, 3 years, and 5 years, rather than focusing only on immediate opportunities. People say, well, I don't know, I'm going to try that next week. No, no, fine, try that next week. But what are your 1 month plan? What is your 3 month plan? What is your 1 year? What is your 3 year? What is your 5 year? Look at all those plans, write them down. I have my little book here, and I have that in the back. I have a little section in the back of this book, and I'm not going to read it because it's a little personal. I got some stuff in here, but let me see what else I can. What can I give here? Let's see. Um, a home. We have a nice house here, but we want to have a bigger home, beautiful home. We have two kids and a cat, and we want to have more space for them, right? That's on here. That's one of my 5 year plan. That's actually more my 1 year plan, but that's the kind of things that I have in there. And you just keep writing when something comes to me. Oh yeah, I want to try to work on that. I'm going to give myself a year and write it in. And then you go back and you clean it up and you organize it better, and make it look really nice. All right. Number six, build professional relationships. LinkedIn, again, professional relationships. You can meet them on Facebook. You can also meet them on Instagram. Any of these platforms, you can meet professional relationships. You can make professional relationships. What you can do is also go to networking events. Whenever you see someone, join local groups, a local film guild, or a local team of a meetup group, or whatever it is. Join them. Facebook groups, they have a lot of those there. Join them, and then see what when they have any events coming up, and show up, and then meet people. Bring business cards. Who does that now? Bring a QR code that you can stick on your phone somewhere. Have people scan it. Takes them right to the website, or takes them right to your social media, wherever you want them to go. Do that. Build professional relationships. Invest in continuing education. You always got to learn. You always have to learn about business, marketing, technology, leadership, and industry trends. Find out what's happening. As I've mentioned here before, you can watch, if you're on screen here and you're watching, you can actually go to these two sites. Go to readthedailies.com. It'll give you a lot of information on what's happening in the film industry, and some music, but mostly film. Go to the industry.co, another site. You learn so much from there. You learn what's happening in the industry. Keep abreast of what's happening, because when you're in a conversation with somebody, especially if you're in a conversation in a professional manner, and somebody says something and you're like, oh, I never heard of that. And you're like, and then, it may be like a big story, and you're like, oh, you didn't know about this was happening with AI and merging, and you didn't know about this big merger with Paramount and Warner Brothers. I mean, that's how did you not know that? In their minds, they're saying that. Maybe they won't say it out loud, but in their minds, they're saying, well, you're not really connected to the industry. So you have to stay connected to the industry. Keep studying. Number 8, protect your intellectual property. Keep records of your work and understand ownership, copyright, trademarks, and licensing opportunities. This comes a little bit also with the learn the basics of contracts. You put that all together, learn about IPs and your intellectual property, what you own, what is yours, your writings, your videos, your interviews, your films, your music. Learn how much you own of that, because when you sign with you sign an agreement with somebody, in the agreement it may say they own it, and you no longer own your material. Now you're putting stuff out and they're just going to own. It's really sad because I've seen it happen, and it's just it's really difficult to get your licensing back, your ownership back of your material once you sign these really bad contracts. Number nine, maintain professional communication. Always, respond promptly, follow through on commitments, and treat people with respect. These are obvious things, but you have to say it, because if you're in a meeting and there's a lot of people around and somebody comes at you and they're talking to you, and suddenly you think this person, and I've had this happen, has happened to me in reverse, where people have, not that I'm a major celebrity, but I have some connections and I know some people and I have some networking, and they would just see me. I'm a little Puerto Rican dude. I come in, they don't know who I am, and they're just, I could see that they're kind of like not even paying attention to me, and I'm having a conversation. I had somebody, this happened to me once in a meeting. I knew this big congressman, actually a senator, and I knew the senator. He knew who I was, and I was in a meeting, and I was just coming by to go see him. And as I'm walking towards him to just say hello, he was in the middle of a conversation, so I just kind of stopped, laying on the side, and this woman goes, he's busy right now, so come back later, And I was like, oh yeah, no, I just want to say hi. And she's like, so then the senator is talking, and he sees me, he knows me, and he goes, "Hey," he goes, "I want to talk to that guy." And then the lady was like, "Oh," then she kind of realized, "Oh, I'm not coming up because of." So she kind of diminished who I was just because she didn't know who I was, and it wasn't a nice thing to do, but that's what she did, and it made me feel bad. But then obviously I was vindicated and validated by the senator, who gave me a very nice acknowledgement. His name was Jose Serrano, and he was from New York City. And his son, Jose Serrano Jr., also a very nice guy who I've met a few times as well. So they just kind of gave me some validation at that moment, and it kind of made me feel better. But you can't treat people that way. If you see, I mean, if it's a threat, I wasn't a threat. I'm this little dude coming up. I was just walking very with a smile, and then just seeing him talking to people, and I wasn't a threat. Obviously, if you see somebody threatening, you want to say something, but you got to be nice to people. You never know who you're talking to. Again, I'm not that famous, but to the senator, I was. He knew who I was. Is he a congressman or a senator? I get confused if his son was a senator and he was a congressman, or vice versa. But both great human beings. All right, number 10, and the last one here is diversity. Diversify your opportunities. Explore multiple revenue streams such as performance, licensing, merchandise, teaching, content creation, consulting, or event production. I think I have all of those. Maybe not licensing, but no, I do have. Actually, I have some songs on ASCAP. So all that, I think I have. I've diversified. You have to find a lot of ways that you can use your content to make an income stream, right? So figure out how you can do that. Multiply certain things and be like, oh, I can do this, I can do that, I can do that. Each one of them can be an income stream, right? If you want, I did a show on this in the past. You can go look at some of those episodes where I talked about how do you do that and what are the income streams that you should be looking at, depending on what your art is, right? What your creativity is. All right. Well, my closing thoughts here. I hope this is helpful to you. I hope this is something that you can go back and hope you can share this with your friends. Maybe if you're watching this, you can say, "Hey, this doesn't apply to me, but maybe this will help you," and you can just share it along. Like and subscribe, and I appreciate you all here. My closing thoughts. The most successful creators understand that creativity and business go hand in hand. You don't have to become a lawyer, accountant, or a marketing expert overnight, but the more you know, the more you learn about business side of your craft, the better equipped you'll be to protect your work, grow your audience, and create opportunities. and you will build a career that lasts. All right, friends. I want to thank you so much for tuning in. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. It is weekend. Don't know what. I guess start our last weekend of June, and then we go into July. And yo, where has the time gone? We are more than halfway through the year already. I feel like we just said Happy New Year's. But it's amazing. I hope you're all having a blessed year so far and really improving your condition. Again, you can always reach out to me at johnhenrysoto@gmail.com for any questions or any assistance of any kind. I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you all. Have a wonderful weekend. Take care of yourselves and take care of each other. And as always, peace.